Happy Monday, everybody. I'm excited to introduce you to my mom, the great Melissa O'Rourke. Wesley, good to see you. You're first on today. I'm going to bring her on in just a second. And as always, we're playing 92.3 The Fox right now. Another Phil Collins hit. 2 in the last 5 days. Tough to take, but we play what the Fox gives. Live by the Fox, die by the Fox. Jack, Tim, good to see you. Tim just joined us on a very fun phone bank for food banks this weekend. We spent 2 hours calling people all over the state of Texas. And I was on with Tim and like 99 other people who all gave 2 hours of their Saturday to call prospective volunteers and ask them to sign up for a shift at their local food bank. And I was assigned a list in Houston, Texas, and it was great. And I remember my best phone call was with a woman who, when I convinced her that she should sign up for a shift and I asked her what day was best, she said, I'm a public school librarian and I'm doing some distance learning with kids in our school, but Wednesdays, I have a big chunk of time free. So sign me up for Wednesdays. And then she asked, can my 2 teenage daughters sign up and volunteer at the food bank as well, which was great. So all 3 of them are now volunteering in Houston, or will be this Wednesday of this week, and hopefully every Wednesday until we get past the worst of this pandemic, the unemployment filing, so many people out of work and so many people in need right now. And we want to make sure that we are there for them while we can be. If you want to join Tim and me and many others, and we Zoom the call. So we're all zoomed in so we can see each other, but we've got our Zoom calls muted. And we do dances when we connect with somebody and we sign somebody up. It's actually a lot of fun. If you want to join us, you can go to poweredbypeople.org, poweredxpeople.org. And if somebody posts that in a comment, I'll pin it. I forgot to copy it onto the clipboard before I started this. But it's a great way to be involved. It's a wonderful way to demonstrate that we all have a role to play and we're not impotent in the face of this pandemic and this crisis. There's something for us to be able to do, all of us. And if you're not a frontline healthcare worker, here, I think I got this one. There we go. Thank you, ATX Crystal. If you're not a frontline healthcare worker, if you're not stocking shelves in the supermarket, if you're not ringing up our purchases at the Walgreens, there's still a way for you to help out. You can donate or volunteer at these food banks. You can go to Powered by People. Thank you, Crystal, for putting that up, and sign up. Okay, a couple things, and then I want to bring my mom on, and I want you all to meet her, and I want her to answer my questions and your questions. There's a question box right here, and if you click on that, you can enter your question, and if it is relevant and pertinent to the conversation today, I'll do my best to ask it. Want to make everyone aware, because you're going to see some of this stuff on the news, these protests, quote unquote, that we're seeing in many states around the country, a lot of southern states, some of our Midwestern and northern states too, like Michigan, protests against the closures of businesses and these stay-at-home orders. And while I think it's really important that we recognize that this is really tough on a lot of people, again, record unemployment filings, lots of businesses that are temporarily shuttered or will have to shut down perhaps permanently, not enough help getting to enough people. And it's a very legitimate thing to be concerned or anxious or scared or want to be able to go back to work again. These protests, some of which have people showing up with AK-47s and AR-15s, are not grassroots. They're what they call AstroTurf, where deep-pocketed donors have basically paid to produce these protests for your nightly news. And so when I see headlines, and I saw one today from ABC News saying protests springing up all around the country, it really gives you a false sense of what's happening and what's not happening in America. Most Democrats and most Republicans and most independents are concerned that we will open up this economy and get people back to work and potentially expose them to coronavirus too soon. In other words, most people in this country agree with the public health experts that we should ensure that we have enough tests so that we can trace the contacts of everyone who's infected, isolate them, and stop the spread of this pandemic before people go back to work. And so if there's someone to be angry at, it's those who are responsible for producing the tests disseminating them, distributing them around the country so that all of us know whether or not we have COVID-19. And unless you've had that test, you both have and don't have COVID-19. And you should act as though you do have it. That means don't go out. And if you do, wear a face mask, keep your 6-foot distance from everyone, wash your hands obsessively and religiously and all the time, and take all the steps that the public health experts have warned you to take. And don't believe the bullshit that you're seeing on some of our news channels and some of our newspapers, that there are these folks who are protesting out of good faith. That may be true for a very small number of them, but this stuff has been bought and paid for by people like the DeVos family in Michigan and Alex Jones in Austin, Texas, and others who have a vested interest in distracting from the real questions. Where are the tests? Where is the personal protective equipment or the PPE? And where are the ventilators that we need? So those are the things that we should be focused on right now. Lastly, before I bring my mom on, and maybe I'll ask her about this as well, but today is the 20th of April, 420. A lot of people celebrating cannabis today. A lot of people taking note of the fact that the battle is not yet won yet in changing our drug laws. And while I think there's a lot of good fun to be had today, and probably some good reasons for those of you who live in states where you can do this legally, to be able to chill out today or celebrate in your way of choice, I do want to remind you that there are a lot of people behind bars today who are there simply for possession of cannabis or marijuana. And disproportionately, they are Black and brown Americans. ACLU just published something today, and I tweeted it out. If you haven't seen it yet, please go read the report. Basically shows that white Americans and Black Americans use cannabis at the same rate. In fact, white Americans probably use it a little bit more than Black Americans. But Black Americans are 3 to 4 times as likely to be stopped and frisked and arrested and imprisoned, and upon release from prison to have to be forced to check a box on every employment application form saying that they have a conviction, making it less likely that they're going to get the job. They, in many cases, do not qualify for student loans anymore, and their options have been constrained, and their future prospects have been narrowed because of a war on drugs that really became a war on people, and on some people more than others. So as you celebrate 420, also acknowledge that there are a lot of people who cannot celebrate, who do not have their freedom right now. And until every single one of them is released, and every single one of them has their arrest record expunged, and until marijuana, cannabis is legal in all 50 states of this country, our work is not done. And let's all resolve ourselves to do that important work for everyone in this country, not just some, but for all of us. Okay, enough of that. And now the amazing Melissa O'Rourke, mother to Charlotte and Aaron and Beto, grandmother to Maximo, to Ulysses, to Molly, to Henry, to Patrick, just a wonderful, amazing human being who was kind enough, although I'm sure she did not want to do this, to join me on the live stream today. All right, here we go. Drum roll. See what we got. Mom.
Hey.
Can you name the song or the artist?
I can hardly hear it. I don't think so.
I think it's The Doors.
Oh, it could be. I can. It's very. Maybe I need to turn my volume up because I can't hear it.
Were you
my hearing is going like my eyesight.
Were you a Doors fan?
Yes.
You were.
I did. I do. I have some of their albums. Yeah.
One of my best memories from growing up in the O'Rourke house is discovering your record collection and discovering, I think you put the Beatles on for me at, a tender age, like 9 or 10. And I just became absolutely hooked. And then when I was old enough to put the records on myself, and especially on summer days or weekends, just listening to those records incessantly over and over again, memorizing the words, and then terrorizing my sister Charlotte and forcing her to be in the O'Rourke Beatles band with me and to memorize the lyrics as well. So Mom, have you ever seen anything like this? What's going on right now?
No,
Was it
no.
like this in the 1930s?
Oh, let me think back. That's going so far back. No, but you know what? One of the things that I'm home now with, I've been going through this closet of my mother's that had boxes of her photos and books and memory books, and I've been reading letters between my mother and my father. And this is in like 1942, 43. She's met my dad. They haven't quite gotten married, but just, living during the war years and how difficult it was and how money was so tight and getting and communicating, it was by letters. And I'm going to try to call you tonight. And then I tried for 2 hours, the letter says later on, but I could never get through. What we're going through is for us so unusual and so remarkable, but I think about what my parents went through and generations before us, and this is just another experience that I think we're all up to it and we can get through it, but I don't think it's as bad as some of the things that my parents had to go through and grandparents.
So your dad was from Georgia and your
Right.
mom was from Wisconsin, and they met. Did they meet in Albuquerque?
They met in Albuquerque. My mother's grandparents lived there, and my dad was stationed at Kirkland Air Force Base.
He was a navigator in the World War II era bombers. Is that right?
Right. And we all laugh about that because he had the worst sense of direction. And then he was going to be a bombardier, but he never got to go overseas, which I just read a letter, and I want to share it with you that his dad wrote him to encourage him that it's okay that he didn't get to go over, and all the reasons. I mean, he just gave him such good advice, and it was very touching. So, yep.
Yeah. So that generation, some refer to as the greatest generation, they lived through the Great Depression. They fought Nazi Germany, liberated Europe, were able to win the war in the Pacific against Japan, rebuilt much of the world, laid the groundwork to successfully fight communism in the Soviet Union, a fight that many of them didn't live to see, but eventually was borne out in my lifetime and in yours. I wonder what they would say about this right now. Amy and I have been volunteering at the food bank here in El Paso, and the lines are just so long, and it's staggering. As you are coming off the exit on the freeway, there were already cars that had to exit the previous exit to get in the back of the line that goes 2 or 3 miles back to get there. And the lines are growing because more and more people are out of work. And I would imagine if you've just been laid off, that first week, maybe you can make ends meet. The second week, a little bit tougher, but by week 4 or 5 or 6, really hard to feed yourself and your family right now. And the only thing comparable to that I can think of is the bread lines and the soup lines from the Great Depression.
Right.
And that's your parents' generation.
Right.
What's your day look like? Are you staying at home? Are you following all the guidance? Are you not going out, not hanging out with people? Or are you secretly going to bars and nightclubs and partying right now?
And going in the back door? Actually, I have kind of a routine. I walk every day, and it's glorious because the birds are just so happy, and they're singing their morning song, so that gets me out. And then I'm doing more piano practicing. I've been cleaning out closets.
What song are you working on right now on the piano?
Oh my goodness. I've got 3. I'll have to think about that for a minute. A Chopin piece, a nocturne that I've been working on a long time, but it's been fun. So I do mostly more classical. I don't play
No ragtime, no jazz.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Next time, if we get to do this again, you
Mhm.
should be seated at the piano and just kind of be playing lightly in the
Yeah,
background while you and I
yeah,
talk.
yeah.
So I I was a little concerned that you're not taking this seriously enough when you showed up at my door Saturday morning with pasta sauce and fresh bread that you had bought from Artavino's Desert Crossing. And I feel like, I don't want to reveal your age, but you are in your 70s, and for you to be out buying this stuff and bringing it to me, not only do I worry about you, but you end up making me look bad. I should be out there buying the stuff
Yeah.
for you and delivering it to your door. So
Yeah.
was that an effort to shame me, or just to make, or were you worried that I wasn't feeding myself?
You know what? Well, we just thought it was such a great thing that they were doing, having these prepared frozen meals. And we thought, wouldn't it be fun to share it with you and also with Charlotte? She got some spaghetti and meatballs. And so, no, we got to wave at you and see you. So it was really, we were so excited to have somewhere to go and something to do. So,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was nice to see you, and the meal was so good. It was so, we
Oh,
we didn't eat it Saturday. We ate it last night. It was awesome. All right, Mom,
right.
I'm going to take some questions in the little question box that's at the bottom.
Okay.
So can you do me a favor so that the question, because it'll come up on the screen so that it doesn't cover your face, will you adjust your camera so that your head is at the top of the screen?
So that my head is at the top of the screen. How do I do that? Hmm.
Um, there you go. That's it.
That's
You
it?
had okay. So
Oh,
Jack
okay.
asks, Mom, what is your favorite meal to make in quarantine? What have you just knocked out of the park with this additional time to be at home?
Oh, wow. Um, while in quarantine, well, I made this wonderful vodka pasta with a concentrated tomato paste. It was just really wonderful. One thing that I've always wanted to do was um, candied citrus peel. So I did grapefruit, and today I did oranges. So it's a process, but it's anyway. So
What is that? I'm not following you.
well, you take the peel of a citrus, like a orange, and then you kind of cook it several times to get all the tartness out, and then you cook it for a long time in a sugar bath, and
Mm.
then you have this concentrated orange peel, and then you roll it in sugar to offset the tartness, and it's a candy, but it's kind of an old fashioned treat. So
So
that
I've got a couple of questions for you, and I'll try to get to them quickly. But I've got to tell you, I have not had a haircut in 5 weeks or so,
mm-hmm.
and or longer. And I was telling Amy that maybe we could live stream you giving her directions or guidance in cutting my hair. But then I remembered the last time you cut my hair, you cut the top of my ear off. Do you remember that?
I do
The little
remember
top of
that.
my ear, you
And
just
for
took
some
it right
reason,
off.
that was the last time. You would never let me get at your hair
Oh,
again.
it scarred me. It was traumatic. Uh, Cousin Jimmy asks, what is your favorite Mexican food restaurant in El Paso?
Oh, Avila's. I'll have to say Avila's. I love their red enchiladas. They're the best, and their tacos. Yeah.
I have to ask this question just because it's funny. Jack wants to know: did you ever want to fight Ted Cruz? Was there did anything ever get you um, that angry?
You know what? I just got pleasure in my way of seeing things of watching him make a fool of himself on certain occasions. So I just think he sort of speaks for himself, and so maybe I never did want to fight him, but um, I wasn't very fond of him. I'll just say that much.
Do you have a funny memory other than cutting the top of my ear off when you were cutting my hair
Funniest.
that you want to share? Tim asks. These are tough,
Um,
Mom. I'm sorry.
I'm what? Let's see. I'm just trying to think of the funniest memory of you.
How about this? Here's another version of that question. Do you have a favorite or work family holiday memory that you would like to share with us? I remember you taking us to Fort Davis, Texas, and I was like
Yes,
12. And
right.
there's like an old fort that you can see, which is great, but we were there for 5 days and we'd done a little hike in the mountains maybe. That was not necessarily funny. That was a tough one. Was there a funny or fun vacation you can remember?
You know, the one thing that comes to mind, because it was so idyllic, was we had some friends in Michigan that invited us to stay. They had a little house on a lake. And so all the family got to go, and they had children, of course, the same age as my children, of you all. And that I have the fondest memories of that time there, because it was just so restful and beautiful and such an escape from uh, life back in El Paso, where we had to work and cook.
Mom, Storm asks, did you ever have to put me in timeout?
Yes, yes. Beto was really, he had a great skill, and it came to really knowing how to get to his sister, his middle sister, not Erin, but to Charlotte. So he would, he would just keep at it and keep at it until they were fighting. I was wanting to get in the fight. This is always when their dad was not around, of course. And so I do remember putting you in the dining room, putting you in a chair, and Charlotte in another chair at the other end. And you all, I think, just had a ball in there without me around. But yeah, I did have to put you in timeout. But you were really, other than that, you were just the perfect child, as was Charlotte and Aaron. I was really blessed.
Do you have a favorite amongst your kids?
Nope,
No.
no,
You sure?
positive.
Charlotte and Aaron are not listening, so
No, no.
um, here's a question from Anna. First thought that I would enter politics. Did you have any premonition?
No, actually, when you told me that you were going to run for city council, I really never thought that you would want to follow in that field. I did not have a premonition at all.
So someone just asked, is there anything about me that reminds you of my dad, Pat, who was in politics, who was a county judge and a county commissioner before that, and just very civically engaged. Anything?
There's so many things that remind me of your dad. You have mannerisms of his, your ability to speak and be so clear and concise and get your message out is amazing. Your dad was that way too. I just remember the first time I went to hear him when he was campaigning for running for the school board, community college, and I sat in that audience, and he got up there, and I was just like blown away at how effective he was and how well he spoke. And so many of your wonderful traits you have from Pat O'Rourke, for sure.
This is a really good question from Wesley, and I'm actually very interested in this. Is why I don't know the answer to it, but certainly your political views have shifted over the course of your lifetime. I think all of ours have, right? No one's born, knowing everything or fully formed, right? And we're
Right.
influenced by events and things we learn and people we meet and folks that we're inspired by. So, but Wesley's question is specific to my involvement in politics. Since I have served on the city council, been a member of Congress, ran for the Senate, ran for president. Did any of that change your political views or
Um,
affect or influence or and people should know you were for most of your life a Republican,
right, right. And actually,
but you are not anymore,
no,
or are you?
no, I'm not. And I feel like leading up to when the Tea Party came on board and all that, I would have called myself an independent, but um, I definitely I really consider myself a Democrat, and probably um, I've just more and more feel like the Republican Party is still so far afield of where this country needs to be, and the way most of the people really think in this country and feel about things. So, yeah.
Let me ask you this, because you are in a better position than probably most who are watching this right now to answer this question. Sometimes it seems obvious to me or clear to me that the Republican Party is a cult. And that's not a word I use lightly, but when I see that Donald Trump has a 94% approval rating, this guy who's put kids in cages, the guy who inspired the El Paso shooter to kill 22 people, the guy who's completely bungled the response to coronavirus and hasn't produced the test, when he's able to maintain that level of support within the party, it does not seem as though people are independently reaching conclusions about these issues, that it's almost a cult of personality. But I don't want to be unfair to people, and I still want to be able to reach out to people and connect with people, because we're going to need everybody, right, to bring this country together and to move on the things that we care about. How you've got to still be in touch with many people who are Republicans and voted for Trump and would vote for Trump again. How do you explain that? And yeah, tell me how you think about them, or whether you bring this up with them, or whether this is something that's too painful or too divisive to talk about at dinner or on the phone with a good friend.
Right. Yeah. No, I think early on, when these differences were more apparent and I was more aware how far apart we thought on these things, it was very difficult to talk about it. And I feel like it's just really, I feel like the people, when we do speak about it, they dismiss all the things when you bring up the way Trump treats women and his attitude towards migrants or people coming into our country. They say, well, they say it's minor, or I don't think about that, or that I think partly it's mainly issues of uh, abortion and immigration and keeping this country not so mixed as should be happening with the natural migration of people coming in from other parts of the world that want to be a part of America. I don't know, Beto. It boggles me that people can support this man, seeing and witnessing all the things that he does, and they don't see the lies that he makes. They don't see it as lying. They think it's somehow it's false, fake news, and I
Right.
don't get it.
Two more questions, Mom, and then I'm gonna let you go, to make the citrus peel thing that you were talking about. Is that a dessert, or is it something you put on your face?
No, it's a dessert. It's a treat.
Gotcha. Okay. O'Malley asks, what was your first impression of Amy? Did you approve?
I loved her immediately. She walked in, she had such a presence. She's so beautiful and so poised and bright and charming. Oh, I just thought, what a godsend.
Did you wonder why does she like Beto, given
No,
all those things?
no. I thought
Yeah,
she was
you did
she
probably,
was very wise because she could see how fabulous you are.
even though
So
it wasn't obvious.
no, it was.
I've got one. God dang, these questions kind of reshuffled on me once I asked one. There was a guy or a person who asked, oh, here we go. And I can't pronounce this handle, but he's a small business owner, or she is a small business owner, didn't receive the help for small businesses or the disaster relief. And first of all, I just want to say that I am sorry that you're going through this. I'm sorry your employees are going through this. And I want to make sure that the government is responsive to you, or if the help wasn't contained in the last relief bill, that it is in the next, and that we get that passed as soon as possible. But Mom, I thought this might be a chance for you to talk about being a small business owner. You ran and owned Charlotte's Furniture for a very long time, and Charlotte's just closed its doors. Was it 2 years ago, year and a half ago?
It's almost 3 years. Yeah, 2.5 years ago.
Two and a half years ago. And your mom and dad started that business in 1950 or 1951. Um, I guess you can probably sympathize with how this person feels, trying to stay in business and keep their employees paid. Any thoughts about what that's like? I know you don't have the business now, but put yourself in
Oh,
that person's shoes.
I think about, I worry so much about all these small businesses, especially the small local businesses that, a month or 2 months without business is a huge impact. And I'm just hoping and praying that we are going to be, I know it's going to be a gradual reopening, and I'm hoping it's going to be the local small businesses first that get to open their doors, and with whatever perimeters they have, limited to so many people in the door, whatever. But and I do feel like once things are getting back to normal, I feel like the majority of the community wants to go out there and support restaurants and shops and bookstores and getting their hair cut. I mean, I do think we're all going to come through this all right. It's just, we're all tightening our belts, and we're going to be coming through this stronger, I think, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I definitely feel that at times, especially when we're volunteering at the food bank and I see all the other people who show up. When I read stories about the healthcare workers, and my sister, your daughter Charlotte, is an ER nurse in El Paso right now, and I think about the sacrifices that they make, the folks stocking the shelves at the supermarket, everyone who's doing their best to help everybody else out. And I got to think there's got to be a way for us to make it, given all the good people in this country. And then sometimes, I listen to the president, and I really worry. And I see the numbers of people who have contracted coronavirus and the number of people who've died already in the United States. And we know that we're nowhere close to the end. And I really worry about that. And I've talked to several people who have lost a loved one in the midst of this. And not only is there anguish from, losing somebody, but the way in which you lose them, where you cannot be by their bedside, you can't grieve for them, you can't go to a funeral. It's just really tough for a lot of people right now. And so that balance between acknowledging just how bad it is, and then finding a way to be hopeful and optimistic, and then to put yourself in a place where you can be an active part of making it better, for us at the food banks, for others in different ways. I think that's kind of the challenge for all of us right now.
Right. No, we don't want to have to step one step forward and two steps back. I know it's going to be a gradual transformation, leaving this lockdown that we're in right now, but I know it'll happen, and hopefully it'll be the right timing.
Mom, you've been a really good guest.
Oh, well, I feel honored that you would have me on your wonderful show. I've been so impressed with people that you've had as guests, so I feel honored.
Do you know who we're going to have on tomorrow?
Yes.
It's Jose Andres, world-renowned chef. He owns a million restaurants and employs, lots of people all over the country. But even more importantly, he's been at the forefront of feeding people and trying to find a way to get food in the wealthiest, the most powerful country, the country that grows more food than any other place on the planet, to people who are actually hungry right now. And so I'm super excited about having him on. I'm going to ask him about the citrus rind sugar recipe that you
citrus peel, yes.
The citrus peel.
If he wants to add that to his assortment. No, I think he's going to be wonderful. I'm looking forward to that for tomorrow's show.
And a good friend of mine, Walker, who I went to high school with, was our connection to Jose Andres. In fact, he was sitting next to him on the subway in DC, and they struck up a conversation. This was maybe a couple months ago. And then from that is the connection to have us together on the show tomorrow. So
wow.
There you go.
There you go.
I love you, Mom.
I love you, darling.
Good to see you. Is it time for a haircut, or how long can I let this go?
I think you've got another couple of weeks in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Love you. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All
right. As promised, that was Melissa O'Rourke. thank you all for joining us. And lots of questions came in. I didn't have a chance to answer them all, but I tried to get to some of the fun ones and some of the pertinent ones. Dan Cowder, I saw your questions about Pat O'Rourke. That's my dad who died in 2001. What pieces of advice that he would give me before the presidential run? One thing he would tell me to do is to win. And I think he'd also probably tell me to have a lot of fun while I'm doing it. And certainly Dan and the road crew and all of our volunteers and ambassadors and the staff, the team that I got to work with on the campaign, made this a lot of fun and had a lot of fun while they were working and volunteering for us. So that was something that came to mind as I saw that. So thank you all for coming out tomorrow. Again, I mean, how cool is this? That we're going to have Chef Jose Andres on World Central Kitchen. He was just featured on 60 Minutes Anoche. And I read some of the transcript of that. We don't have TV, we don't have cable yet, so I got to find a way to download the episode. But just reading the transcript and reading about his focus on feeding people, you all might be surprised at how much food we throw away in this country, and not just food at restaurants, which is something that we got to fix, but food that is literally grown by farmers in fields all over the United States that we cannot get to market right now. And there is a breakdown between those farms and the food banks and the hungry people in this country. We've got to fix that. And so getting to hear him talk about that tomorrow is going to be great. And just whatever guidance and words of wisdom that he can share with us, we're really looking forward to that. So please join us tomorrow. Jose Andres is going to be joining us 4:30 Mountain Standard Time, and we're looking forward to seeing you all then. Thank you for joining us, and I want to thank Cynthia Cano, our producer, for getting Melissa O'Rourke. That was a big get on the show today. Christy, who does our graphics, and Elizabeth, who provided us with our CDC data, all of our numbers that we share on the show every day. All right, you all be well. We'll see you tomorrow. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.